A new house? Old haunts. When I was a teenager, I was the only kid left in the house. My older brother had just gone to college, and suddenly, everything felt too quiet. The house was big and old, with creaky floors and doors that groaned when they moved. It had always felt a little strange, but now that I was alone upstairs, the strange feeling grew stronger. One night, I was lying in bed, singing softly to myself. It was late, but I wasn't sleepy. My parents were asleep downstairs, and the house was still, until I heard it. Shh. It came from just outside my bedroom door. I stopped singing, heart beating fast. Maybe I imagined it? I waited, listening hard. Nothing. I shook my head and told myself I was being silly. I started singing again just to calm myself down. Then I heard it again. But this time, it wasn't a soft shh. It was a low, clear adult voice. Shut up. It came from the hallway, right outside my room. I froze. My heart pounded so hard I could hear it in my ears. I didn't dare speak or move. I stayed under the blanket, holding my breath, not even peeking out. I didn't sleep at all that night. I just lay there wide-eyed, waiting for something else to happen. But nothing did. Not that night. That wasn't the first strange thing in the house. It wasn't a secret in our family. We all knew something wasn't right. Even before I was born, weird things had happened. When my parents first moved into the house, it was just the two of them. My mom was pregnant with my brother, and my dad worked nights, so she was often home alone. She stayed upstairs in one of the bedrooms, trying to rest, but the house never let her feel alone. She heard footsteps, heavy ones, walking up the stairs, every night, but no one ever came up. She would sit on the edge of the bed, holding a handgun she kept for protection, but no one ever appeared, just the footsteps over and over again. Once, she hung my dad's jeans outside on the clothesline to dry. Later, she looked for them, but couldn't find them anywhere. Finally, she found them, folded neatly inside the baby's crib. She hadn't put them there. No one had. But there they were. As my brother grew, he started to talk. When he was still in a crib, he would giggle and laugh at nothing. Mom would go to check on him, and he'd smile and say, "She's tickling me." He was too young to know what that meant, too young to make things up, but he always said the same thing. "She's tickling me." No one knew who she was. The house had a strange energy. Sometimes it felt cold even when the heater was on. Sometimes you felt watched, even when no one was around. But we got used to it, or we tried to. One day when I was about 13, I was out in the yard. We had swings made from ropes and an old clothesline pole. I liked swinging there just to feel free and calm. I was mid-swing when I felt something, a hand. It came from behind, firm and cold, grabbing my shoulder and stopping me mid-swing. It didn't push me or pull me. It just stopped me. I jumped off the swing and turned around, but no one was there. I stood there, confused and scared. It felt real. Too real. Another time, I was standing at the bottom of the stairs. I heard something upstairs in my bedroom. Loud snoring, like someone was fast asleep up there, but no one was upstairs. I knew that for sure. I was the only one home at the time. The snoring went on for several minutes. I didn't go up to check. I was too scared. I just listened and waited until it stopped. The basement was the worst part of the house. Cold, dark, and damp. We didn't go down there unless we had to. But one day I did. And I found it. On the wall, in pencil, was a message. It hadn't been there before. "Goodbye. I have to go now." The words were shaky, like a child's handwriting. But no child had been in that basement. We didn't let anyone down there. My brother was gone. I hadn't been there in weeks, and my parents never wrote on the walls. Who did? We never got an answer. Years passed. The weird things never stopped completely, but they happened less often. We stopped talking about them. We tried to forget, but the feeling in the house never left. It was like the air was always heavy, like someone was always watching from the shadows. Eventually, my parents moved out. It was the early 2000s. They had lived in that house for over 20 years. My brother and I had grown up there, but we never really called it home. Not truly. There was something there, something we couldn't see but always felt. It wasn't just one ghost or one strange moment, it was many. It was the footsteps, the voices, the snoring, the cold hands, and the whispers in the dark. It was the things that moved when no one was looking. The missing clothes, the baby laughing at someone invisible, the messages on the wall. It was a presence. Old, maybe. Angry, maybe. Lonely, perhaps. We never knew its name. We never saw its face. But it knew us. And even now, after all these years, I sometimes wonder, if I went back, would it still be there? Would it still be watching? Would it still be waiting? Maybe some houses don't forget the people who lived in them, and maybe, just maybe, some of them never let go. The shadow in the ceiling. When I was a kid, I lived in a very old house. It was big and quiet, with long hallways and strange sounds at night. My family always said the house was haunted, and I believed them. Many strange things happened there, but one thing scared me more than anything else in my life. This happened when I was 16 years old. By then, I was used to the strange feelings in the house. Sometimes lights would flicker, or we would hear footsteps when no one was there. Our dog would bark at empty corners, and sometimes our cat would hiss at something we couldn't see. But none of that scared me like what happened in the upstairs bedroom. That bedroom was always strange. It was cold even in summer. The air felt heavy, like something was sitting on your chest. I didn't like being alone in that room, but it was my room, and I had to sleep there. The worst part of the room was the ceiling. In the corners, there was something dark. It wasn't always there, but I saw it often. A black shape, like a shadow, but thicker and darker than a normal shadow. It stayed up high, near the ceiling, hiding in the corners. Sometimes it looked like smoke, and sometimes it looked like a person crouching up in the corner of the wall and ceiling. But it never moved, and I tried to ignore it. I told myself it was just my imagination, or maybe a trick of the light. But deep down, I knew it was real. I could feel it watching me. I didn't tell my friends because I didn't want them to think I was crazy. I told my mom once and she looked scared, but said maybe I was dreaming. I knew I wasn't. Most nights I would go to bed, see the shadow, and just turn my back to it. I would pretend not to notice. That seemed to work. It would fade away after a while if I didn't pay attention to it. I thought maybe it just wanted to be seen, or maybe it liked the fear. I wasn't sure, but I always stayed quiet and still. Then one night, everything changed. It was a warm night, but the room was freezing cold. I was lying on my bed with the lights off. The only light in the room came from the streetlight outside, shining through my curtains. I was almost asleep when I noticed it again. The shadow was there, but this time, it was not hiding in the corner. It had moved. I opened my eyes and saw it floating on the ceiling, right above my bed. My heart started beating faster. It wasn't just a shadow anymore. It was a shape, like a thick cloud, but it had arms and a head. I could see its outline, even in the dark. It was slowly moving, like it was swimming through the air, and it was coming closer. I froze. I couldn't move or scream. I just stared at it. My body felt like it was made of stone. I wanted to run, but I couldn't. The shadow floated closer and closer until it was right above me. Then, without warning, it dropped. It came down fast, like a bird diving, and it passed right through me. Or maybe into me. I felt cold, like ice in my veins. My whole body shook. I couldn't breathe. I felt like I was being pulled into a deep, dark hole. My chest hurt, and I could hear a loud buzzing in my ears. I screamed, a scream I didn't even know I had in me. It was loud and full of terror. I jumped out of bed and ran out of the room. I don't even remember how I got to the hallway. My legs were shaking so badly, I fell right outside my door. I curled up on the floor, hugging my knees, still screaming. My mom came running. She thought someone had broken into the house. When she saw me on the floor crying and shaking, she looked terrified. She kept asking me what happened, but I couldn't speak. I just cried and screamed. It took her hours to calm me down. She sat with me on the floor, holding me, rubbing my back, whispering that I was safe. I couldn't stop crying. I felt like I had died and come back. I couldn't explain what had happened. I didn't even understand it myself. That night, I didn't go back into that room. I slept in my mom's bed like a little kid. I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that shadow dropping from the ceiling. I felt it again inside me. I was afraid it had stayed. After that night, I refused to sleep in that room again. My mom didn't argue. She moved me into the guest room. We kept the door to the old bedroom closed, but sometimes, late at night, I would hear the door creak open. My mom would always say it was just the wind, but I knew better. I wasn't the only one who saw it. A few weeks later, my cousin came to stay with us. She didn't know anything about the shadow. We gave her the guest room, but one night, she wanted to sleep in my old room because it had a bigger bed. She lasted one night. In the morning, she looked pale and tired. She said she had the worst dream ever. She dreamed something was floating above her bed, and it had no face. She said it looked like a shadow, and it tried to pull her out of her body. She woke up screaming and refused to ever go back in that room again. That was all the proof I needed. I knew I wasn't crazy. I knew the shadow was real. We lived in that house for 2 more years, but I never stepped into that bedroom again. Even during the day, the room felt dark and cold. When we finally moved out, I didn't feel sad. I felt free. I hoped the shadow stayed behind, but sometimes, late at night, I still feel cold for no reason. I still dream of the shadow. I see it floating above me, waiting. And I wonder, did it really stay behind? Or did a part of it come with me? I'll never know for sure, but I'll never forget what it felt like when that shadow dropped from the ceiling and passed through me. It was more than fear. It was like losing part of myself. That old house had many strange things, but that shadow was the worst. It didn't just want to be seen. It wanted to be inside. New house, old haunts. When we moved into the new house, everything seemed fine. My wife and I were happy. The house was a little older, but it was quiet and had a nice backyard. We had just found out we were going to have a baby, so it felt like a fresh start. Nothing strange happened for the first few months. We unpacked, settled in, and started preparing for our daughter to arrive. But after she was born, things changed. It started small. One morning, I was getting ready for work. My wife was talking to me while our baby lay on her playmat. There were 4 little toys hanging from it. Suddenly, 3 of them started swinging at the same time. Nobody touched them. There was no breeze in the room. They just started moving on their own, swinging together like someone had pushed them. We looked at each other. My wife went quiet. I didn't say anything, but something about it felt wrong. After that, things kept happening. We would come home to find cabinet doors wide open, bedroom doors too. We were sure we had closed them, but somehow they were open again. It wasn't just once or twice. It became normal. We would leave the house with everything in place and come back to find it looking like someone had been walking through the rooms, opening things, and then disappearing. One night, something even stranger happened. It was late, maybe around midnight. The house was quiet. Suddenly, our car alarms went off. The garage was closed and locked, so I didn't understand how anything could have triggered them. I went out to check. I looked around the garage, expecting maybe a rat or something small. Nothing. Not a single thing out of place. I went back inside, and the second I stepped into the house, the alarms went off again. I rushed back to the garage, but again, nothing. I had to disconnect the car batteries to make it stop. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, thinking about what had just happened. Another night, I was in bed again trying to sleep. My wife was already asleep next to me. Suddenly, I felt a lot of pressure on the side of the bed. It was heavy, like someone had just sat down. At first, I thought it was our cat, but then I remembered our cat never comes to my side of the bed. I turned my head and saw nothing there. Still, the pressure didn't stop. I felt cold. Goosebumps spread all over my arms. My whole body went stiff. I whispered, "Man, fucking stop, dude." I didn't know who I was talking to, but it felt like someone, or something, was really there. I pulled the blanket up and moved toward the middle of the bed. The pressure faded for a moment. Then it came back, stronger. This time, it felt like something was crawling on the bed, on its hands and knees. I didn't move. I didn't speak. I just lay there, frozen in place, waiting for it to go away. We started seeing things too. There was a guest room down the hall. We noticed a dark silhouette walking back and forth in that room. It didn't look like a person, but it was shaped like one. It would just pace back and forth, like it was waiting for something. After a few nights of this, we got scared and covered the door with a blanket. We didn't want to see it anymore. A few days later, my mother-in-law came to stay with us. Our daughter was only about a week old, and we needed the help. I told my wife not to say anything about the guest room. I wanted to see if my mother-in-law noticed anything without us warning her. That Sunday, I came home from work. My mother-in-law was sitting on the couch, looking at me. She didn't smile. She just pointed and said, "You son of a bitch, it got in bed with me." I stared at her, shocked. Then I looked at my wife. "See?" I said. "Told you I'm not fucking crazy." That moment proved everything. It wasn't just us. We weren't imagining things. Something was really in that house. The worst moment came a few weeks later. I was sitting in the living room around 11 p.m. The TV was off. My wife and daughter were asleep. I was just sitting there staring at nothing when I felt it. Someone was watching me. I looked to my left toward the hallway. That's when I saw a face. Clear as day, a face peeked out from behind the doorframe. It looked right at me, then ducked back quickly. I jumped up and said, "Fuck that," and ran to bed. 2 minutes later, our daughter started screaming. I grabbed my phone, hit record, and ran to her room. I didn't even look around. I picked her up, held her tight, and went straight back to our bedroom. I didn't stop recording until we were all safe in the room with the door closed. This kind of thing didn't just happen once or twice. It happened all the time, for 3 years. We lived in that house for 3 years, and every single week, something strange would happen. Sometimes it was small, a toy moving, a door creaking open, footsteps in the hallway. Other times, it was big, like the pressure on the bed, the face in the doorway, or the screams in the night. We tried to ignore it. We tried to live our lives as normal, but it was always there, watching, waiting. Eventually, we decided to move. We couldn't take it anymore. It wasn't safe. Not for us, not for our daughter. We moved out 2 years ago, but I never stopped wondering if it was us or the house. A few months ago, I spoke with the new people living there. I didn't tell them what we went through. I just asked carefully if they ever noticed anything strange. They paused for a moment, then they said, "Yeah, we've experienced a lot of the same things." That was all I needed to hear. It wasn't just us. We weren't crazy. The house is haunted, and whatever lives there, it's still there. If you like the video, please give it a like, leave a comment, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Also hit the bell icon so you never miss an update.